Now that the gate of fitness has now opened up, I can finally talk about this without feeling guilty of spoiling anything for Ian player. Anyway, welcome to Hell. This is where the story will take place for the entire next year, so therefore get comfortable in here. Soul Weapon are a new type of weapon and will be the main set of weapon you will get moving forward. And even the collaboration with another game is also Soul Weapon, so I doubt that we will ever get a normal weapon ever again. There are currently in JP a lot of different Soul Weapon. Soul Weapon doesn't exclusively belong to Limbo, it also belongs to many other places too, but the main 4 types of Soul Weapon we have so far are Limbo Weapon, Divine Weapon, Fortune Weapon, and Aerial Weapon. Divine Weapon is a bit spoilery, so I will not talk about it now because it happened in the second half of the story of all, but for the other 3 I can talk about it. Okay, so I will explain how the soul works first. For Limbo Weapon, there are 4 different types of soul for it, and they are Sun, Stat, Star, and Moon. And these are not the official name, I just call them because the little icon next to the soul is what they look like the most to it. The other thing is that soul also has rarity, and the only thing you need to know about it is that rarity of soul determines how strong it is. The better the rarity, the better the soul is, so you always want to go for the best and the higher rarity as much as possible. How it works is that when you click on a soul, there are multiple effects that it can give. The effect it will give is the one that when you roll into your weapon, it will give one of the random effects that are listed in the soul. And among the random effects, the number is also random. So let's say in this picture you got like the top one, which is like the rarest one, then you will get a soul that increases the damage you do to the enemy in Limbo around either 15% or 20%. You get lucky, you will get 20%, but you get unlucky, you will get 15%. So there's random inside random. The easiest way to compare this to is that if anyone played Genshin Impact, it's very similar to the artifact system, except that this one is less punishing and not as harsh as the Genshin system. And also among the soul, there are some that are rarer than the other, which means that they are not just all 20%, that you get 1/5 of getting a chance to get the effect of each one. If a soul has the marking of rare S or rare A, they have a lower chance of getting them. Chances are because the effect is better than the normal one. Sun Soul has all the rarity, and the most notable thing about Sun Soul is that one of the effects is that you will deal more damage to the enemy in Limbo, and you always want to have this effect when you do a Sun Soul, and I don't think that anyone uses Sun Soul for any other effect other than that. So you use the Sun Soul, you always want to go for the damage up effect. That soul is very simple to understand. It's a soul that will grant one of the bonus attribute stat to one of the stat that you want. I guess you want more attack, then you use a stat soul, but stat soul isn't as good as Sun Soul because if you want to deal more damage to the enemy, you'd rather just put more Sun Soul onto your sword so that you can deal more damage to the enemy, specifically in Limbo only. Oh, an example of rarity difference is that a bronze stat soul might only grant 5 or 6 attack, but a rainbow stat soul might grant up to 30 attack. So therefore, you want to go for the highest rarity soul as possible as long as your weapon allows for it. Star Soul would raise a potency of a character move. So let's say I want to raise Fuel Crumbling Cut, I would buy a Star Soul that's specifically made for Fuel, and hopefully in one of the 5 options, it will roll on Crumbling Cut, and when you do roll on it, then your Crumbling Cut will deal more damage. The thing about Star Soul and the Moon Soul is that they both only have 1 rarity, so therefore you don't have to worry about looking for the highest rarity as possible, because there's only 1 rarity for both of them. And speaking of Moon Soul is also like Star Soul, where it's also unique and there's 1 of each for every single character in this game. Except for Moon Soul, you use it for 2 effects. The first one is that you can use it to reduce an SP consumption of a move that a traveler have. But the second one, which is the one that everyone uses Moon Soul for, is to raise the damage cap of that character. Moon Soul is mostly used for character that has a high potency nuke where they hit the damage cap too early, so Oberek and I guess 2B would also fit in this. But character like Rat will not like the Soul because his strongest move is already split into 5 hit, so therefore some other thing like Star Soul or Stat Soul or even the Sun Soul would benefit him more than the Moon Soul does. If you roll a soul and the effect of the soul is something that you do not like, then there is an option to reroll it, and there are two main ways to do it. The first one is that you put a new soul on top of an existing one, and then you have the option of picking the new effect or keeping your old soul. And the second option is to reroll the soul completely using purple dust. Purple dust would take out the soul of that weapon and revert it into a completely new soul, and you can put that soul again on the same weapon or on another weapon. The only downside to this though is that, unlike the other option, you don't get an option to pick the new effect or an old effect, since you're essentially replacing the old one with something new and there's no turning back. I say that you like the old effect and you want to keep it, but you want something even better, or you want to gamble a bit, then use the first method where you buy a new soul and replace it, because that one at least you can still keep the old one. But if the effect of the soul is super bad, then just use the purple dust to reroll it. There are 6 types of Limbo Weapon, and they are Void, Eclipse, Thorn, Time, Wedge, and Abyss. The only difference between all of these different types of weapon is it determines the type of soul you get to put on the weapon. Another thing is that each soul weapon also have a different bonus for stat depending on how many soul you have on the weapon. So let's say you have 4 soul on the weapon, then you will gain all 4 bonus stat from the weapon that it will give you when you put in the soul. The stat that it will give you though is also dependent on the weapon. All Limbo Weapon has the exact same stat, and also when they are enhanced, so you don't have to worry about how future Limbo Weapon released in later story is better than the old one. One of the other important things that you need to know about Limbo Weapon is that Limbo Weapon deal more damage to enemy in Limbo, and because of this, I highly suggest making Limbo Weapon before you try to fight the enemy and the boss of the Store of All Chapter 1. If you don't, then the enemy feel like they have plenty of health. I would say it's kind of around half of a battle tested NPC, so I would highly suggest that you change your weapon to Limbo Weapon right away so that you feel like your weapon actually deals some damage. A new Limbo Weapon will be released every single chapter from chapter 1 to chapter 6. From chapter 7 onward, you guys will use a new type of weapon, but there's a spoilery by then, so you will get a new type of Limbo Weapon from chapter 1 to chapter 6. Here is the type of soul you can put on each weapon. Hopefully I didn't color overdose too much. Like, if it was just all white, then it would be too boring, but I feel like this is a bit too much color, so sorry if it's a bit color overdosing on the presentation. In summary, the strongest Limbo Weapon would be the Abyss Limbo Weapon, which is chapter 6 of Bestow of All, and the reason why is that it has 3 slots to put in Sun Soul, and Sun Soul means that you deal more damage to enemy in Limbo, and that's always the one you want to get for your Limbo Weapon. But Abyss Limbo Weapon are not available until chapter 6 of Bestow of All, so for now your only option is to use the Void Limbo Weapon, because it's the only one that will be out for now for Yen. And now we're gonna talk about Limbo Weapon Enhancement. All Limbo Weapon at level 1, they only have 2 soul slots. At level 2, it will get an extra one, and at level 3, it will also get another one for a total of 4 slots. The enhancement of a Limbo Weapon is also time gated by chapter, so I don't know the exact timeline for this, but I do know that when I play JP, we get enhancement 4 when chapter 7 of Bestow of All was out. And I kinda like this new method better than the old one, cause in the old one, every time you go to a new town, you always make a new weapon, and the old one is becoming invalidated. With this one, you can make one weapon and it will still be viable throughout the entire Bestow of All. As for making a Limbo Weapon, it's the same as making a normal weapon. You just kill the enemy in the area, and you give it to the blacksmith in Limbo, and they will forge it for you. And the one good thing is that Battle Tested Weapon isn't required to upgrade the Limbo Weapon to level 4. You upgrade to level 4 using the same material you enhance from level 2 to level 3, which is still material from enemy that you fight. Oh, and I forgot to mention this a while ago, but there are 2 ways to obtain soul. The first one is to fight random enemy, and they will drop you a random one, which is unreliable. The second one is to just buy them from the shop with soul fragment. Next in the Soul Weapon series, we have Fusion Weapon, which is not coming yet, okay? It's not on the roadmap, so hopefully it's on the next roadmap. The best way I can describe it is like Build-A-Bear Workshop, but for your weapon instead. As what I mean is that our weapon starts from 50-50 stat, 50 attack, 50 magic, and the soul you put in determines the stat of the weapon. Another thing about Fusion Weapon though is that Fusion Weapon deal more damage to all enemy in Ostera, or the overworld, or to put it simply, the world that you guys are currently living in that is not Limbo right now. Fusion Weapon are obtained from the Heavenly board game, which is not in EN yet, but it's a game mode where it's Mario Party, but replace the mini game with battle instead. And I know that some EN players have heard about this type of weapon already, since they heard about how in JP you can make a magic sword for a character like Ticklin, or a physical staff for a character like Yanlong, so they can deal more damage and be their true potential. And that is specifically referring to Fusion Weapon. Limbo Weapon doesn't do it because the soul is only modifying some bonuses like extra stat or some extra effect, while Fusion Weapon, the soul modified the stat greatly compared to Limbo Weapon. The soul that is used for Fusion Weapon is called Dice Soul, and it's exclusively for only Fusion Weapon only. And another thing is that, like Limbo Weapon, Fusion Weapon enhancement are also time-gated by chapter, and they do not have an enhancement for some reason. Even currently in JP, we should have got enhancement for a while now, but a Fusion Weapon does not have an enhancement for. The maximum level is enhancement 3. There are 3 separate categories of Dice Soul, and they are separated by the influence, which is wealth, power, and fame. The difference in influence change what the negative attribute of the soul is. So for example, an attack up wealth soul would grant attack up but a negative attribute to HP, while a power attack soul would grant attack up but a negative attribute to SP. So the different type of influence on the soul changes what penalty you will get on your soul. And then there's Fame Soul, which just kinda sucks because Fame Soul, they have no negative attribute, but in exchange for that, the stat that they grant is half of what wealth and power would grant. So therefore, wealth and power soul is more preferably used compared to Fame Soul. There are only 2 rarity for a Dice Soul, and they are Rainbow and Gold. The only difference is that Rainbow Soul grant more stat than Gold Soul, and each Fusion Weapon all have the exact same 4 slot for each soul to put it in. There are Rainbow Dice, Gold Dice again, and then a Star Soul. All the Fusion Weapon, regardless of weapon type, regardless of the type of weapon, will always have these same 4 slots. Rainbow Soul is a bit different from a Gold Soul, is that Rainbow Soul only grants bonus stat to either attack or magic only, but it can grant up to 300 of one stat, so if you roll the maximum value as possible, you can get up to a 300 attack or 300 magic on a Rainbow Soul. Gold Soul, on the other hand, can grant up to 150 stat to mostly all 6 attributes. I think that the number was different a bit for HP and SP, but I don't remember exactly. And Star Soul, again, boosts the potency of a move. Let's say that you roll a Feel Star Soul and you get Crumbling Cut, 11% damage up. What I mean by that is that Feel Crumbling Cut potency, you get that potency and you time that by 1.11. That's what I mean by increasing the damage. Okay, I will show a quick demonstration of how Soul Weapon work exactly. So this is a Fusion Weapon, and the base stat you can see is 50 attack and 50 magic. And if you want to modify it, you have to put in the soul here, and there's a lot of soul to put in. So let's say I want to make this sword be, let's see, if I want to be speed focused, I can use this right here, where the option here is you get 75 to 150 speed, but also at the cost of a negative attribute stat. This is attack, this is defense, and this is HP. It's random between these 3. It would choose one randomly, and usually if I would want a speed boot, Well, no, usually if I want it to be a negative attribute, I say defense or HP is the one that you should prioritize for, because negative HP down, unless you're dying constantly, then the loss of HP doesn't matter that much. So I'm gonna put on a speed soul now and see what I will get as a result. Click this and you say yes, and it will give you one of these three options, from 75 speed to 150 speed, and the result is the soul that I roll is 119 speed and attack down. But I do not want attack down on my soul, because attack down is like the most detrimental to the stat, because you need to attack the enemy. So therefore, not only is the stat not as the maximum 150, it's also a bad negative attribute. So therefore, I can re-roll it by clicking this and use a Purple Dust. Purple Dust would take out the soul for me and bring the soul back to its new reset state. And now I went from 16 soul to 17 soul again, so I can do it again. This one is 98 speed, which is worse than the last one, and defense down, which is not as bad as attack though. But optimally, you would want to go for a very high speed soul. So you get something like in the 130, 140, then that's really good, and I will stop right there. But the soul is bad, so therefore I just take it out, and I think that should be it for the demonstration. You have up to 3 slots to put it in. The first, second, and third slot are for putting in the dice soul to modify the stat, and the fourth slot is for... Oh wait, I don't have any... I forgot to buy them! The fourth slot is to customize a character potency move. A star soul, like I say, is used for both Limbo Weapon and Fortune Weapon, and they raise the potency of a single character move, specific move. And last thing I do want to talk about though is there is a bonus stat depending on how many soul you fill out. Let's say you have 1 soul fill out, then you will get 20 critical stat. You have all 4 soul fill out, you will get all of these stats together. So 20 critical, 20 defense, 20 magic defense, 50 HP, 10 SP, 20 attack, and 20 magic. And the same go for soul weapon also, not just fortune weapon. So this is a soul weapon. And they also have a slot right here, but this is the base level. Once you enhance it to a high level, you will unlock the 3rd slot and 4th slot. But at the base form for Limbo Weapon, it will always have 2 slots. And then there's Aerial Weapon, which was released when the Live Alive collab was also released. And they're simply just Limbo Weapon, except the effect is different. So instead of doing more damage to enemy in Limbo, Aerial Weapon would have special effect on each weapon. For example, Aerial Sword would have you gain 300 HP regen every single turn, and the effect is different from the other weapon. Just imagine it as Bravely default weapon like the one that we have, and it just has some soul slot into it. And that's it for my explanation of the soul weapon. If you do have any question, then do ask in the comment, because this is kind of a complicated topic if you haven't used it yet. But once you try to use soul weapon, it should not be as complicated anymore. And that's it for now. Goodbye.